you approach the zipper notch here, we are going to back stitch, and then I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to the maximum, and we're going to machine baste the rest of the way down. Okay, now we are going to press this seam open. So now we're going to sew the zipper in. So I've gone ahead and put in a zipper foot, and I've got the needle down, and so we are just sewing the zipper tape and this seam allowance edge, okay? The rest of the dress is over here. So we want to sew, as close to here as possible, and we basted this in because it can be really fiddly to do with pins, and this is a case where if you take a minute to put in the basting, it might save you some grief in the long run. So with regular stitch length, we're just going to sew all the way down here. So as I'm approaching the end of the seam allowance, I've got my presser foot down, my needle in here. If you sew around the end of the zipper, like the zipper slider, you're going to end up like with a weird seam that goes way out here because of the space this takes up. So I'm going to open up my basting seam a little bit and slide the zipper down and then sew it. And now we're going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to start sewing up here and then slide the zipper up. And again, you want to make sure you're not catching the main fabric of the dress. That's to the side. And continue to the bottom. So now that we have sewn down the seam allowance on the inside, so if you look at the front, yeah, that looks pretty good. So we're going to continue to open up the basting down to the bottom where we had changed our stitches to a regular seam. So just carefully opening this up there. You want to, if you can see when it's closed, like you can't see very much of the zipper, especially when all the pleats are, when it's all pleated up. So I've got the zipper in here, and you can see that, like, you can't see it that well, so that's good. That's what we want. So I've taken out the basting. Still got a couple fuzzies I need to lint roller off, but there we go. And I pulled out the basting in behind here. And you want to stop taking out your basting at the bottom where we had reinforced the stitch here for the rest of the seam. So it's like that. Okay. So I'm working on putting on the neckband right now. So what I did first of all was I folded it in half and marked the halfway point with a pin. So I've done half of it, mark it with a pin, pin the other side here, and notice I've got this edge folded back a little bit, and there's my zipper. So this neckband is going to be smaller than what this is here, but we are just going to find our pleats and fold the pleats. Like, see how this is stretched out here? I'm just going to fold these back and then pin or clip that in place until your neckband is the right size for the neck opening. So working with the pleats is a little bit challenging, but it just takes a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra pinning. And sort of like over here, you can see how this is like loose. So I think some of these pleats might have gotten out of shape when we pressed the when we were working on the seam for the zipper. So we're just going to work the pleats back in. Okay, so now that looks pretty good there. Then we will stitch this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I think I'm going to do it this way so I can see what's happening with the pleats as I sew to make sure that they're all going in the correct direction and not getting folded up on themselves the wrong way. Now we are going to fold our bias tape over, and again, so the bias tape is going to be closing, it's going to be finishing our seam here, and you won't see it from the outside. Okay, and then we'll sew along here, and just take a bit of extra care that your ends are neat here. I'm going to have to fold that down a little bit, or you might need to trim off a couple little flyaway bits. So now we've pinned our sleeve hem, and just stitch your double turned hem. Now I'm ready to sew on the waist elastic. So what I've done is I've cut my elastic to the correct length in the pattern. I fold it in half and I mark the middle with a pin. And I mark down from the pattern where the waist should go. This is the back, there's the zipper there. So I've pinned it at the edge here, just on the inside of the seam allowance of the zipper. Now I'm going to, because the elastic is much smaller than the dress, this is the center front. So I'm going to pin that on the center front. Okay. Then I'm going to take the end, make sure it's not twisted, and bring the end back there's the side. Bring the end back to here. I'm going to pin it in place there. So when your elastic is pinned on like this, while you sew, we're going to zigzag it and we're going to like stretch it way out as we sew it. So I'm at my sewing machine and I've got this set to a zigzag stitch, and I am stretching it way out like this to sew it, so then after it's sewn it'll scrunch right in at the waist. But just keep your anchor pins in and just stretch it out in between and it should all work out.